Because until you do, it doesn't matter how much help you get from the people around you to support you to move into a better financial trajectory or any other area of your life that you want changed. Somewhere. Hey now, how is everybody doing? Welcome to Alert Diaries with Tanya E. Today, I'm going to share a collaboration of lessons that I've walked through to help me reset. Because when we find ourselves in places that do not support us or bring out the best in us, or maybe we just don't know what else to do because so many things will keep coming, we're here are 3 lessons that will get you started and support you on the journey. Going through that divorce left me broke and broken. I no longer knew who Tanya was. I didn't know my favorite color. I didn't know my favorite flower. So even in my home, which is supposed to be our personal sanctuary, there was very little evidence of me. So when I ended up going through a divorce after 11 years of marriage, I didn't have evidence of me. So what did I do to get to the space where I was beginning to be whole? First, major moments of moving past your comfort zone was what I eventually had to experience. I moved out of my 3-bedroom home into a 2-bedroom apartment. And for me at that time, I had not been in an apartment in my adult life. I was raised in a home, and so apartments to me seemed small. Not having a backyard for my kids seemed wrong. But that apartment was my reset. My reset in my environment, my reset in my thoughts, my reset in how I would process what was going on in my world. I was no longer going to allow myself to feel like I was a victim. I had to take some control. And granted, this was not an overnight journey. The first couple of months after my divorce, I could do nothing. It took everything in me to just get out of bed. So I sent my children to my mom. I didn't have enough strength in me to get me through the day and to help them through it as well. If you find yourself in that same situation, be patient with you. I want you to know that it is okay to let you be first in the moment of chaos. It feels like, because society says that you should not allow your feelings to come before your children's needs. I want you to know that if you are broke down, have a screwed up, messed up thought process, and you are malfunctioning, you'll be throwing that on your kids. So do what you need to do to get you whole. So for the first couple of days when they were gone, I barely got out of bed. Well, the chaos that was revealed in my home, had you walked into it at that moment, clothes was everywhere, food and dishes all over the place, carry out crap because I wasn't cooking. It was chaos after 2 weeks of malfunctioning, because I'd also lost my job. So unemployed, no kids, depressed, not diagnosed technically, officially by a doctor, but those moments that you experience, even if it's an undiagnosed situation, they're real. The feeling of not wanting to do anything at all is real. And I want you to know that sometimes in your self-diagnosis, be clear and define it, because you cannot fix what you will not define. So I finally made a decision. Didn't define it, depression, but I did define the fact that I was in mess. Physically, spiritually, literally. It was horrible. So my first thing was one thing: make up my bed. It was everything in me just to do that. It took me another whole week to consistently make up my bed. I didn't do anything else in the house. All I did was make up my bed for a week straight. With my bed finally made, it gave me the strength to start clearing out some of the other things. I slowly cleared out the trash and the food and the mess that was in the room, worked my way out of the bedroom into the living room, finally cleaned up the kitchen, actually went and got some groceries because I still had a little bit of money left in the bank, but it wasn't a lot. And I knew I had to put together some sort of strategy to get some finances in the house before I went and got my kids. But I didn't have a clue. If you don't know what to do for a full gamut of what takes place, write down what that looks like. I knew the area that needed fixing. I didn't have a strategy to fix it. But listing it out was one of the things that helped me move into a better direction. So cleaning my bed helped me get to clean the house, which helped me start looking at other things in my life I needed to clean up. So after I brought my children home, got more stable, getting them together, I had to create a routine for them and me. Creating a routine helps you create good habits as long as it's a good routine. By doing that, it gave me room to not have to think about every single thing, because when you're in chaos and breakdown, thinking about how to move past all of the stuff in your world can be overwhelming. But a routine that you develop consistently to support you and those around you can give you some wiggle room to start thinking of other ways to be whole and healthy. So I figured out how to put my children on a decent schedule, which was easy for me because they were already kind of scheduled. I just had to recuperate from the visit with my mom. Because here's the thing, the mama that raises you is not the grandmama that shows up for them. She had me on a clear schedule, which is where I learned to schedule my children. But them little boogers didn't have a schedule with grandma. So I had to reset my household rules. Create what you need to keep you whole. I discovered in resetting some of those rules that there were things that I could not put back in our usual schedule because some of those things required their father to step in. There were activities that he did with them. I couldn't fill in the gap for that. So what I decided to do was create the schedule that kept the household safe, sound, and gave them a platform so that we can create a new foundation. It's okay to not do everything that you once did in your marriage once you become divorced. It's okay to not have to pick up all the falling pieces. Your kids don't need all of that. What they're really looking for is, are you going to still be here? Because they realize one parent is not there. But if you are there, consistently showing up, whatever that looks like. And for me, it was just 30 minutes of consistent time that I had already done with my children. But I had to make certain I was real consistent with it because I sort of stepped in and out of it when I was married with their father. But being divorced and on my own, I couldn't let the gaps keep being there. I had to shore that up. So if you need to be clear about what to do for them, be clear about what you can truly consistently stand in. You see, when I was going through the struggle when my credit score dropped from 736 down to 526, I had to figure out what was going on. It wasn't just about the chaos from my divorce that was causing me financial issues. There were other things that kept showing up as well. Because even when I got my credit score in the 800s, I got my financial position from being unemployed to making the amount of money that I thought I needed to get me whole, I still had bad behaviors and past dysfunctions that was haunting me in numerous areas. I decided that I needed to do an autopsy on myself the same way I did an autopsy on my divorce. Because what we don't often pay enough attention to is what's happening to the various areas of our lives. As I got one piece of my life together, it seemed like another part of my life would fall apart. So here's what I want to encourage you to do. Do a holistic view of who you are, from the top of your head to the soles of your feet, because until you do, It doesn't matter how much help you get from the people around you to support you to move into a better financial trajectory or any other area of your life that you want changed. Somewhere in the seat of your soul, you will sabotage the growth that you have, the developments that you make, the things that you are changing to make certain that you get the lifestyle that you truly desire. There are times where you need to be the pioneer because your past is causing you to malfunction in your present and it will sabotage your future. And I don't want that to keep happening because if you are like I was, you're dragging your babies through your learning process. Let's not keep creating the chaos or taking too long to get to the help and the support that we need because there are others depending on you. And if you don't have children, I want you to know there are still others depending on you to get it together, to get it right, to defeat your bad habits, to defeat the things that have been causing you to be paralyzed by fear. Here's the first thing I want you to do. Do a complete autopsy of your condition. How are you spiritually? How are you physically? How are you emotionally? Because that also impacts how you will function financially. Those 4 areas that I think everybody should take a look at, because if you don't take a look at what that is in your life, you could be personally sabotaging one area when you're trying to fix the next. That's something that I did. See, when I was working on getting myself into a better financial position, going through all those things, learning it, I finally got myself out of being unemployed to working a good job, a job that was supporting me to get out of the 2-bedroom that I was in, into the 3-bedroom house that I wanted to be in. But it took me going deeper because my financial habits were not just habits that I created. There are some things that you are doing that you learned in your past that is causing you to malfunction. See, I learned about money initially from my family. And if your family did not have good financial habits, then you don't either. So you have to first recognize, what are you doing? I'm grateful that I was raised in a household with an entrepreneur because my grandmother taught me that you have to work for your money. And I have a good work ethic, and that is awesome. But I had a bad financial platform that was the foundation that I was standing on. And as a result, as I made more money to get to a better position, there was a hole and a broken piece in my foundation that was causing the money to just disappear. As my income grew, you would think I would get better and having the resources that I need to move forward, but I wasn't. As my income stream grew, so did my financial issues. My debt increased. Everything that I was trying to do, I kept sabotaging because my past behaviors that were not my own, but I never stopped to check it. Your family has done the best they can to give you what they can offer you, but it does require you to see what you need to take to apply to your life today, because you're not living in their generation. There was something different that they were creating to help support them. And in your generation, there is something different that you need to create to support you. So my grandmother's habit of saving, which was good, but what I needed to help me move forward in my life was a new habit of investing. Now, for those of you that have gone through the gamut, well, this is how my mother did it, this is how her mother did it, and you don't want to disrespect or dishonor who they are, so you carry it over. I need you to know it is okay to decide that their bad habits are not things that you need to carry forward. Remember the good that they gave you. Remember the life that they were trying to create for you. Remember the dream that they wanted you to take in your life. You may be the one in your family that will have to cut the ties to the bad habits from those in your world. One of the things that I truly discovered as I started getting better with starting to invest, my financial portfolio was beginning to blow up, and I was now positioned to be a support system for the people around me. That made me feel real good. But there was a level that I seem to keep capping at. Because see, one of the things with my grandmother is that there always seemed to be more month than there was money. No matter how much she saved, no matter how much she worked, that was the reality. But you know what? It became my reality as well. I made more money than anybody that I personally knew at that time in my life, but I was still struggling, having more month than I had money. What was going on? So it was not about me working hard because I worked hard. It wasn't about me being able to save because I learned how to save. And it wasn't about me investing because I had now positioned myself to invest, which was giving me finances to grow in other things. But I still had that one bad habit that just kept showing up on the door. It's like the 16th or the 20th of the month would show up and then month, poof, just disappeared. I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't figure out what was happening. So here's something that I had to start doing more. Creating a financial strategy, putting together a simple financial plan. And for those of you that don't often work with me, it's a budget. A budget lets you know where you're spending your money, what you're doing with it, and it can also be a tool to help you move into a different position. But if you've never learned from anybody that you know in your family how to really budget, that's a habit that you're going to have to create. I had to start creating the habit. And here's one other thing that I later learned. The one piece that I did not have was spiritual foundation to deal with my money, emotions, or what was happening in my environment. See, I was working with other principles in my life, and that principle of tithing is where I started. But I did not fully function in that one financial principle because it was the hardest thing for me to be consistent with. I started with what I thought was a consistent number, $20. So I tithe $20 consistently every week. But then at the end of the month, when the 15th or the 20th would come around, I started contemplating, do I even give the $20? Now, granted, there wasn't a whole lot happening with it, but I went through that discussion with myself about it. And so I chose not to. Then I started walking through a pattern. When you start walking through different things that are habits in your life, there are patterns that you are creating. I need you to look at them. Because when I started looking at the pattern, the months that I started giving the consistent $20, when the 20th showed up, things started being a little bit better. So I decided to increase it a little bit. Do one thing to help make the change that you need. I was looking to have a different financial position, a different emotional position, a different physical position. But I had to start with making the one change from a spiritual position. I want you to know it's going to take strength to break the bad habits that you have that's dysfunctional. But let me tell you, y'all, when I did that, things changed. I started getting opportunities that never ever came into my existence. I started having my investments grow and expand in manners that I didn't even know was possible. My financial advisor couldn't even explain to me what was happening in those changes. As I started growing more in those areas, I started developing a deeper sense of who I was. And that confidence that showed up helped me change my emotional trajectory. Then it gave me the opportunity to change my physical trajectory. And so I decided I will start being better balanced by looking at my life on a more holistic patterns, fully functioning in those 4 areas. As a result, I have positioned myself to break the chains from my past, to stop allowing it to be a dysfunction in my present so I can move into my next space and have the things that I was looking for in my future. I found myself one year where I was struggling to graduate from college. I'd gone through so many different iterations, and I was graduating after several years of stopping and restarting. It had taken me so long to do this because at this point, I had to drag my 2 babies along with me. And because I took so long to graduate and I was graduating with a technical degree, There were some things I had to finish that year, otherwise I was going to be a freshman all over again. So I ended up going to 2 schools, working 2 jobs while taking care of my 2 kids to discover that I was going to have to continue to do that by myself because that year was also the year that I was going through a divorce. That insight about struggling to deal with all of that stuff by myself also caused me to go through physical breakdown. So on top of my financial devastation, my educational woes, my physical breakdown, I was in a middle relational breakdown as well. I had friends of mine that were trying desperately to give me some insight. And you can have friends that are doing the best they can, but still cannot be the support system that you need. Reach outside of that circle to get the help that you need to move into the direction that you desire. Because I had to find help in various places. A lot of you have heard me share my grandmother's statement about the Bible being a basic instruction book before leaving Earth. Now, before all of this chaos that was happening in my world, I had gone to church, did the church thing, did all the different services and support of what you are to do as a good Christian in church. But the Bible didn't mean anything as far as real life was concerned to me because I couldn't figure out how to apply it. I knew that there was something in there that was really good, but when I got the lessons and the insight, it didn't make sense to me how I was going to deal with the chaos from all the crap that was happening at school, the relational breakdown. What was I going to deal with the elements of my divorce? How was I going to figure out and walk through the financial devastation? I didn't see the Bible working me through or helping me with any of those things because I didn't know enough about why it was really written. You see, I discovered that year when I had one trauma right after the next, keep piling on and putting me in a place where I found myself in a fetal position on the bathroom floor of that 2-bedroom apartment. When I got up off that floor, realizing that I couldn't keep doing life this way, that there had to be something different. And if God was truly a God bigger than my circumstances, then I need to figure out how to get him included in all of this. That was when I discovered, well, let me say rediscovered, because I've heard the story before that's written in the book of Job, but it didn't make sense to me. But I learned something that day about Job, and I got a different perspective from his life that gave me insight about how to get through the chaos and drama in my life. See, I learned then that the Bible was real. I got a little more assurance from what you all know is my chicken nugget story. When I saw God stand up in the middle of the mess with giving me some support with how to provide food for my kids, I started looking to see how else I can get through the rest of the chaos and the drama that was happening in my life. And I learned that Job went through a financial breakdown as well. He had money. He was living a good life. He was that person that people often went to when they needed to get some support. And he had enough finances as well to help those around the neighborhood if they needed a loan. He was a great foundational setting in his community. Now, I didn't have the money that Job had going on, but I did have some comfort zones with a 2-income household that I no longer was feeling comfortable with. Now I had to figure out how to get through my financial devastation, my relational devastation. And because I was stressing over all of that, I ended up in a position where I had a physical devastation as well, because I ended up in the hospital for a week with the doctors trying to figure out what was going on with me. I had asthma flare up that I hadn't experienced in years. I was going through extra psychosomatic elements in my body that they just could not understand. When I read Job's story that time, I understood the financial devastation that he went through when he was told one right after the other. He had 3 separate financial instances that took place that gave him the understanding that he was bankrupt. When you are an individual that's used to have a certain financial stance, to be told that you have absolutely nothing in your bank account, I understood that now. That story made a whole lot more sense to me because with that $5 and I think 28 cents, I don't even recall the change, y'all. I knew that it was only $5 and something because you needed $10 to get out the ATM. And I didn't even have that. So when Job got that, that's enough for some people to say, okay, we got to reset. But right after he got that message, he got a relational breakdown as well by being told that all his children had died. Then I'm grateful that I didn't have to go through that element of the story dealing with the death of my babies. But I did go through the relational breakdown of my marriage ending in divorce. I never wanted to be divorced. Divorce was the farthest thing from my mind. Nobody ever really gets married thinking that they are going to go through a divorce. When you get married, it's still all roses and sugar plums. You know, everything about you knows it will last forever. But when I found myself right after having to deal with my educational drama, dealing with the excess stuff that was happening, to know that I was in relational chaos as well, it was a lot to bear. And when I ended up in the hospital, it was clear to me that I did not have the financial, the relational support that I really needed because I couldn't immediately call my mama to go get my babies. I didn't have anybody that was immediately there to be a support system for me. The next door neighbor, this person that had only moved in a couple of months earlier, was the support system that stood in the gap for me. Now, and I'm grateful. I am so grateful because I needed him at that moment to watch over my children until other things could be made. But I learned in that situation that I had to show up some other stuff. When you are walking through and you have chaos and drama and all of the things that's happening in your world, I want you to know that you can get out of it. But I also want you to know that there are some things that you can learn while you're in it. You see, one of the things that I learned while I was still going through that was if you have drama, chaos, or whatever that experience is for you occurring in your life, it's not because you did something wrong. There are a lot of people, especially in this part breaks my heart, in the Christian realm, that will make you believe that it's because of some sort of sin in your life that you are going through drama. No, that's not always the case. And for those of you that believe in karma, that you had to have done something bad in your life in order for it to come back now, no, it has nothing to do with karma. There are some moments in your life that God will allow to take place. He will say yes to allowing it to show up because you need to grow your muscles. You see, if you are never in a position where you need to be strengthened, lifting extra weights, getting extra stuff that you got to bear the burden under, you won't learn. You won't learn how strong you already are or how much strength that you still need to get. I learned that year that when chaos shows up, it's because one, you got something you need to learn. Because there were things I needed to learn when I was going through my breakdown and my divorce. I had to discover Tanya. I had to discover elements about me, be sure about who I was from the top of my head to the soles of my feet, because I did not have enough assurance in the excellence that I brought to the table when I was getting paid by others to do that. Sometimes you need to know that what you do on a professional level, you can apply on a personal level. That's why I speak to both elements, both personally and professionally, because you need to be clear what you're bringing to the table. Because sometimes that amazing you that shows up on the job shrinks when you're in your own personal environment. Sometimes that amazing you that shows up personally, that supportive person that everybody goes to, that individual that they know that if they just get to you, things will be okay. If you did that on your job, you could have the promotion that you've been looking for. These are the things that I had to finally gain some understanding about. That first lesson was for me to know some things about myself I had to learn. The second thing I learned that year was I had to grow my muscles. I had to grow my muscles to know that I could handle some things. Sometimes when we go through the chaos and drama of our lives, we get stuck. I want you to know this is not the first time you've gone through something. There has been something in your past that you have already experienced. Now you get the chance to learn how strong you are. And if you aren't certain, by the time you are done with this, you should have some assurance that you are an amazing individual, strong in logic, strong in support, strong in performance. You have the ability to meet the goals that you desire, to reach the places that you are trying to get to. You can, because you've already shown that you can do it before, which means you can do it again. The last part is you may already realize you're strong enough. You may not like going through the drama, but you know you can get through it. You may not like going through the trauma, but you know that you will have a plan and a strategy that you will follow, because you may have learned, like I did then, that you may need to take some of the chaos that's swirling around you moment by moment. That was something that I had to learn. Take what's happening in my world moment by moment, because in some things, a minute is way too long. I knew I was strong enough on certain instances after that chaos of my divorce that year, where I had to deal with school, I had to deal with that, and the ex, deal with the physical thing, just deal with all of that. Because if you are finding yourself in a fetal position on a bathroom floor and you make it through that, oh, you know, once you come on the other side, that you got some strengths, that you have the skill set, that you can get through some other things that will show up. Now I'm in a position when things show up, I have some clarity. I'm strong enough to carry it. But now it's also the time that I discovered I have carried that burden for some other individuals, which is why I teach, share, and show how to gain more clarity about who you are. And I have the natural ability and the skill set that I have developed that allows me to eliminate conflict quickly. So if you are an individual that's walking through something similar, I want you to know that you may need to get a different perspective, because reading the book of Job gave me that different perspective. Job did not have sin in his life. We get the chance to see, even though I don't recall reading Job ever getting a chance to see the preamble of his book where the devil went to God to get permission. Yeah, for those of you, now you don't have to believe in a God I serve, but if you're in the middle of a spiritual battle and the enemy is coming for you, he had to get permission. And if God says yes to the devil coming at you or chaos surrounding you, there is a limit, because God gave a limit on what the devil could do to Job. Yes, God let him give Job a financial breakdown, a relational breakdown, a physical breakdown, one right on top of the other. You may be walking through a similar experience, because I walked through that as well, but there was a limit. There is always a limit to the chaos. There is always a limit to the pain. There is always a limit. So no, you will get through it. And so for today, if you don't remember anything else that was shared, here's what I want you to take away. At the core of your being, if you know who you are, it doesn't matter what's happening in the world, you will get through this. You will reset. You will rebuild. And you don't have to do it alone. So if anything that you have listened to today resonates with you, then like, comment, and share this with others. And leave some thoughts down in the comments so that we can extend the conversation. And if you want someone to join you on the journey, feel free to go to my website, TanyaEhood.com. There you can click under the Work With Me tab and see the various ways that we can work with one another. And if you want to join me for the live discussion, make certain that you show up every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time so that we can continue the conversation or we can start a new one. In the meantime, this is Tanya E. Hood, walking in my purpose, and I want you to do the same.